All right. Well, the time is now 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the May 6th meeting of the Utility Service Board to order. Our first order of business is petitions and communications. Do we have any public comments this evening? Hi, welcome. Please state your name, and just so you know, that is not going to amplify your voice. It's just for the CATS recording.
Okay. Hi. My name is Maya Stoffman, and I'm a 6th grader at University Elementary School. And recently, we've been doing an exhibition project where we study one of the UN goals. And I chose to do clean water and sanitation and how we can get it to all parts of the world. So today, I just wanted to make a quick presentation to you on some of the stuff I've learned through this project. One of the first things I wanted to learn about is kind of why we should care and how it affects people. 444,000 kids under 5 die a year from the diarrheal diseases, and this can consist of typhoid, polio, and cholera. And some of the symptoms are like vomiting, fever, and stomach cramps. Not only do people get diseases, but a lack of clean water and sanitation can also worsen people's cognitive and physical development. So their brain isn't able to progress like a normal person as well as their body. Not only does a lack of clean water and sanitation affect people's health, but it also affects their life. Many kids aren't able to go to school because they get diseases, and kids actually get diseases a lot more than adults because their immune systems are less developed, so they aren't able to fight through the diseases as well. A lot of adults also aren't able to get a steady job because they're out collecting water most of the day for their family and community. Because people all around the world are getting these diseases, there are 2 main organizations that have stepped up, like UNICEF and Concern, and they pump water into cities, which is a great way to help. There are also things that you can do in your everyday life, like conserving water and also using more green infrastructure. Green infrastructure is like rain gardens or bioswales, and they naturally filter water. So this ends up with less stormwater discharge, which saves water. You can also just educate others like I'm doing right now, and also have yourself be educated more. And one of the ways I took this idea and bounced off of it for my action was I made these informational pamphlets about clean water and sanitation and why we need to make sure that everyone has it. And I'll pass them out to you all. So next time you're brushing your teeth or taking a shower, think about how you're not only impacting your life, but the lives of many others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know that we've clapped during public comment, but that certainly deserved it. Thank you, Maya, so much for coming and sharing and choosing this as your topic for your project at school. I'm excited for you to get on and further in school. I teach at Bloomington South, and so I'm thinking of all the science classes that I know that you would enjoy, and maybe one day you will want to work here at the CBU. So thank you. And do you want to pass those out now, your pamphlets? That you'd be welcome to do so. Thank you.
I think I have 23.
Okay, great. Well, we'll take 7 up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Yes.
Do you know where we get our water and whatever?
Yes.
We try to keep it very clean, don't we?
I actually we were supposed to interview someone. I interviewed Phil Peden.
Yes?
Oh, great.
Good. Thank you.
I'm sure he had a lot to share. Well, thank you.
Sorry.
Are there any other public communications? Yes, please come forward. And again, just this will not project you, but just for the cats, and please identify yourselves for us. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Antonia Vachagalupa Album. This is my husband, Aaron Pacheco. We sent you all an email about a week and a half ago regarding the lateral on our property. We've been having some issues, so I'll just summarize real quick. We moved here about 2 years ago. And almost immediately while we were closing, we were having some issues with the pipes, and we thought, oh, it was fine. The owner had assured us that the pipes had been replaced and stuff. But about a year later, 6 months later, I think we kept having more problems. We snaked it. At one point, we had CBU come out and do the main line, because it was actually the main line that was stuck, and they found root balls coming in from neighbors' laterals. And we finally got video of what was going on, and it looks like under the street the lateral is still a clay pipe, and we've got roots coming in at almost all of the joints. All of the roots that are intruding, as far as we can tell, are under the city property. We asked the plumbers to give us a quote to sort of resolve the issue, like what would this look like, given that the policy says we're responsible for it. It was a $52,000 quote. We're both graduate students at the university. So not particularly within our budget, but also given that this is a neighborhood issue, it felt like worthy of a neighborhood solution. I researched other cities who have policies, and none of them are similar to ours in the sense that theirs all say the utility is responsible for the pipe to the property line. So we're here today to bring this issue to your attention and hope we can resolve this in a way that is not an individual $52,000 repair, and hopefully can provide more of a community solution that will help other residents in the neighborhood. We did speak with Nancy Axum about this. She referred us to the tort claim process. I can perfectly, I'm happy to go through that process, but as I said, I think this maybe would be better served as a public solution, not an individual solution. But we only have 180 days to file a tort claim, which will be up sometime in September. So a speedy solution would be requested, though I know it's not always possible to do that in just one meeting.
Thank you so much. Yes, we did receive your email. And just for my purposes, can you please restate again where the roots are coming in on the city side, but it's on your line?
So we are at 816 West Kirkwood. The line runs out from our house about to the middle of the street. In the email, I referenced the roots at, where's the numbers? It's at 36 feet and 24 feet. There's other smaller incursions on the video. I can email those numbers if it's helpful to see exactly, but it's about every few feet. And then the video ends, I think it comes up at 11 feet. So the video starts at 40 feet, comes out of the pipe at about 11 feet, and the roots end at about 19 feet.
And the roots are on the...
So the roots are underneath Kirkwood Avenue.
Okay. Which is the city property.
Yes, and the quote came in as replacing the lateral all the way to our property where it turns back into PVC to the main line where it is once again PVC. So it's essentially that sort of, I think it was about 20 feet of clay.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
Forwarded that email, or?
Yes.
We did? Okay.
Right after our last meeting.
Oh.
Yes.
Missed you.
Which I know you were here that
Right,
day.
okay.
So, yes.
Chris, is this something that the board has control over?
Not really. There's not an appeal made from any decision administratively that's been made. The rules and regulations have a line of separation between what is city responsibility and what is private citizen responsibility. There is a greater question about the common concern with regards to the roots of trees invading not only our responsible infrastructure, but private citizen responsible sections of the infrastructure. I am scheduled to speak and have a larger conversation with Corporation Counsel and other departments with regards to the concerns that we have with this issue. But at the moment, there isn't an appeal before the board for them to make any kind of a decision. This is merely a public comment.
Okay, so you'll get back to us?
Well, I don't know at what time I will get back to you with anything I have been discussing, but through the tort claim action, there could be the potential for some resolution. I don't know what that'll be, though.
But you're going to talk to corporate counsel?
Corporation counsel, yes, to discuss larger concerns with regards to us wanting very hard to be a tree city, and the fact that those trees like to invade our infrastructure, and how that's going to play off with departments and who's responsible for what, when the city does actually have to repair things and costs are incurred.
I was asking, would you report back to the board with your discussion? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, please.
So this would be a part of city code that, like the other parts that utilities, that are applicable to utilities, our board would vote on that and approve it and then move it to city council if there were ever to be any changes, just like we did with stormwater? Or is this somehow different?
If an ordinance, if there was ever going to be a change in the language of an ordinance, you would first come to this board to review that language and approve it before it was recommended to the council.
Yep, so just like
That's usually our.
So it is within our purview to, this is of interest to us, and I understand you're having a meeting with corporate counsel, but in terms of a policy, I think in some way we should understand the implications, the cost to homeowners, and say if the utility was to assume the responsibility for the portion of the pipes that were on city property and take that back from the owners, what would be the cost? What would be our estimated O&M costs going forward on a yearly basis? I mean, we need to understand that as well, and I think be a part of those discussions that you're having.
I agree with that. I misunderstood. If that's what Board Member Sherman was discussing,
Yes.
I misunderstood.
I was just following.
Yes.
I don't know. I was just following.
Yes, I was. So
Okay.
thank you, Jeff.
So, we're happy that our representative is there at the table, Chris, and if there's an opportunity for us to be more involved when you think it's appropriate, please invite us through our president.
Absolutely. I think that there's a broader discussion to be had, and I think that it's going to be had, and CBU's voice, I hope, will be heard.
And I'll just clarify, because we're trying to be a tree city and those trees aren't necessarily planted by CBU, so then the next question would be, would it be CBU's responsibility to fix this?
Staff is already
Okay.
discussing that, and that's part of the discussion that I believe needs to be had with a larger portion of the city.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Other questions, Molly?
The clay pipes are older, is that right? So is there like a replacement time period for those, at some point, or is it just when they fail? Does that make sense?
Yeah, James Hall, Assistant Director at T&D. So we have no plan to replace lateral at this point because they're not ours. As we monitor and inspect clay mains, yes, we typically line them. We don't dig them up and replace them. We push a liner into them. And that's what we do mostly with the clay lines, mains.
And we're doing that line into the laterals now in some of our projects, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and those are varying at different lengths to 3 feet, which we call top hat, to 10 feet to 30 feet. Some of them, I think. Yeah. So.
Matt Kirby, the City Council designation for the Utility Service Board, non-voting member. I just wanted to thank you for joining us and sharing in your email, or I think I saw a letter, and wanted to invite you to follow up directly. My email is available on the City Council website if you wanted to coordinate as constituents. And also just Mr. Wheeler, if you could involve myself and/or like Council President Piedmont Smith in kind of the internal conversation around the greater policy and fiscal considerations of how we handle this now, how else it could be handled. I would appreciate that as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Other questions for homeowners? I have another question for Chris on this topic. Could you please explain the tort claim process?
So, sure. That's the process statutorily by which a private citizen initiates discussion with a governmental entity concerning a potential lawsuit. The tort claim is putting the city on notice of the fact that a lawsuit is intended to be filed, but it's a step in the process by which the city could simply accept that claim and negotiate it at that point versus time passing and a lawsuit being filed. What generally is going to happen through this process would be that if it is the type of a lawsuit where our insurance policies would be in place, those would then kick in and counsel would be employed to review the process to determine what kind of a settlement, if any, could occur. It's just basically the first step in the potential for a litigation.
Yes.
Sorry, one last question. Do you know offhand the section of, I assume, Title 10 that dictates this policy? Okay, no worries, I'll follow up, but yeah, thank you.
I was hoping someone could maybe send that to us too, if whoever finds it first.
I'm happy to share that information with board members if that's what you'd like, so that you can see where this, how that works as far as what we are responsible, what the city is responsible for, and what the private citizen is responsible for.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, for coming, for bringing this issue to our attention. Is definitely something that we need to investigate more. We're glad that there are these conversations going on that we need to look at as a city and then as the utility. I'm not sure of the 180-day timeline, which was why I asked what is that process, just for my better knowledge. I think that I'm just not sure of our timeline to say we can get back to you by this date or have a resolution by this date. I'm sorry that you're having these troubles. Recognize that this is more than a CBU problem. And so we'll do our diligence to investigate and get back with you, I guess. Yes.
Assuming that we will be discussing this in future meetings, yeah? Does that seem likely?
I would assume that we've got some things that need to happen with Chris and committee, and then we'll know more from there. I guess those conversations would kind of maybe dictate our next step.
You know, like you could watch the meetings or keep up on the notes if you want to see progress, you know, assuming that you're not going to get direct communication about every step of the way.
And likewise, just again, happy to help sort of facilitate your visibility into this process as your representative on council. So please reach out. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. Thank you very much for listening and being open to hearing about the issue. We really appreciate it. And
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry we don't have a resolution answer for you tonight, but appreciate you. Well, yeah, but okay. Yes, just bringing it to our attention is the first step. So we're definitely happy to hear it. So thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move on with our agenda. So just a reminder that the City of Bloomington's utilities mission is to enhance the quality of life in our community by providing safe, sustainable, and high-quality drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater services in a cost-effective manner, promoting public health, economic vitality, and environmental stewardship. And just as a reminder, if any board member has any personal or financial conflict with any issues or individuals on the agenda, then please be sure to recuse yourself during those portions of the meeting. So our next order of business is going to be approval of our previous meeting on April 22nd. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? So moved. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have requests for approval of Resolution 2024-12 for approval of appointment of Utilities Director. And do I just do that myself? Lead that? Well, no, I just didn't know there's not like over here. But anyway, Catherine Zager has been appointed by our mayor as our interim director. And so this resolution will approve that appointment. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the resolution 2024-12 for approval of the appointment utilities director, interim director, Catherine Zager? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So welcome Kat as our interim director, and we want to thank John Langley for serving our utility these last 4 months and through this transition, coming out of retirement and giving us his time and cheerfulness every day. We were lucky to have him and wish him well back in retirement. All right. Next, approval of claims. First, we have standard invoices in the amount of $628,295.82. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
One is at the top of page 4, the Indiana Water Environment Association, IWEA. So these are collection system exams. So when I see like distribution, I think water. When I see collection, I think sewer, wastewater. But these were all billed to water. So I know it's through the IWEA, but it seems like they should be billed to wastewater. Can we check on that, Matt? Okay. And then, of course, my pet peeves. There's one more similar, possible misclassification, and that's milestone. I think there's 2, but let's see here. Milestone. Yeah. Next page. Yeah, page 5. So there's asphalt, sewer, build to water, construction. So if we can check on that one too, please. That's all.
I had a question on page 7 with W.W. Granger. Right in the middle, there were 2 invoices in the amount of $199.85. They are different invoice numbers, but since they were the same amount and had the same invoice description, I just wondered about that.
Look into that too, because it's the same plant too. My guess is it's 2 different. They order the same thing, and they just got 2 orders on here, but I'm not sure. But,
Are there any other questions about these standard invoices? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have utility bills in the amount of $33,389.97. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have wire transfers in the amount of $560,227.41. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Finally, we have customer refunds in the amount of $6,747.17. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the approval of the consent agenda.
good evening. I'm Matt Habey, Assistant Director for Finance. I'll be presenting tonight's consent agenda totaling $55,506.31. There are 3 items on the list. The first one is for Lane Christensen and Company. This is for on-call services for all 3 plants for pump and repair to have them on call. The second one is Control Freak Consulting for $25,000. This is for on-call SCADA support and instrumentation. And then there is also one for Atlas Technical Consulting for $5,506.31 to do some statistical analysis on our Dillman groundwater for our I can't think of what it is now. Landfill, yeah. That we have there. Is there any member who wishes to consider one or more of these items individually?
Yes, I'd like to please consider Atlas Technical Consulting LLC separately. Because we're waiting for pending approval from the controller.
Other than that, if there is no opposition, the first two items will be approved as recommended by staff. Hearing no opposition, the first two items, A and B of the consent agenda, have been approved. So, yes.
Okay, so now we can go ahead and consider the Atlas Technical Consulting LLC as its own agenda item. And I believe we got the information about the contract from Matt and in the packet, and Chris has some additional information. Thank you. Okay.
This is a regular contract that we do, if some board members may recall, but occasionally we do have to do some statistical analysis of the landfill that we have at Dillman. And so we hire a consulting firm to go out and do that work. The reason why this got pulled is because that we don't have all of this vendor does not get used by us on a regular enough basis. So some of their forms that they provide to the controller get stale. They need to update their forms so that the controller can have them be an approved vendor. So this got pulled so that the board can consider and approve this contract pending controller approval. So if we could have the motion made like that, I would appreciate it. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Chris? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the Atlas Technical Consulting LLC contract pending controller approval? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have requests for approval of change order number 1 to Thieneman Construction, Inc. Contract for Dillman Wastewater Treatment Plant, Phase 2, electrical upgrades and bar screen replacement. Dan Hudson, welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan Hudson, Capital Projects Manager for the City of Bloomington Utilities. And this is an existing project at the Dillman Wastewater Treatment Plant that is replacing the electrical feeders and bar screens. And during the process of construction, they inspected the conduits and they found that they would not put the electrical feeders through the existing conduits. So we need now to replace the conduits, 2 6-inch HDPE, and have ductile iron under the road. The cost for this is $666,451.30, with a new not to exceed for the project $4,159,451.30. And I'm open to questions on this.
Questions for Dan?
Would it make more sense to put it out for bid, or is it necessary that this company do it?
It's not necessary, and we thought of that because this is right on the line of putting out the bid or not. We just thought that would delay the project. We're happy with the contractor, and so we'd like to move forward on it. For your information, there's 6 feeders in the plant, and we've replaced 4 of them. 2 of them were under emergency work and barely got it replaced in time. And these are the last 2 that kind of finish up the work.
The estimate seems reasonable.
Yeah, I talked to our consulting engineers about that, and they looked at the costs for the previous replacement, and the cost per linear foot is very similar. So we're assuming it's okay.
You said they wouldn't put the new line through there because it's not in good enough shape, because what?
That was our original hope. We were going to save a bundle of money if we could use the existing conduits. But the original conduits are rigid aluminum, which is typical. but the way they were constructed was not. This is 50 years ago. What they, you're supposed to thread the ends of the pipe and then put them together. Well, they didn't do that. What they did, they duct taped it, put them together, and then put concrete on them. And so over the years, the connections, the conduit's fine, but the connections have moved, and they feel like if you put, it's called medium voltage, but it's 460 volts going through this line, that it would scrape the outside, and they would not warranty it. They said, we can do it, but we're not going to warranty the work. So at this point, we don't really have a choice. We have to warranty it. We got to have our put in that way, new conduit. And the HDPE is real smooth pipe. We don't feel there is going to be a problem with that at all. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So we're hoping for another 50 years with this?
For 50 years plus on this.
Okay. If there are no further questions, do we have a request for approval of change order number 1 to Thieneman Construction, Inc. for the contract for the Dillman Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 2 electrical upgrades and bar screen replacement? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have requests for approval of Resolution 2024-13 to sell a tract of land pursuant to Indiana Code 36-1-11-5. Chris Wheeler.
Hi, Chris Wheeler with City Legal again. Recently, within the last several months, it was brought to the City of Bloomington Utilities' attention that there is a parcel of property located out at Lake Lemon where there's a house that was constructed back in the 70s, and for reasons I don't understand, that house was constructed right on top of the property line between the private property owner's property and CBU's property. About 50-50. The property line runs pretty much through the middle of the house. Maybe not quite, but real close. You can see that they're on the screen. There's precedent for handling this situation by the Utilities Department in a couple of different ways, none of which I felt and that the rest of the legal department in consultation felt was the best way to handle it. In the past, there have been situations where some decking might get built out across into our property lines. We've handled that through an encroachment agreement in the past. There was another situation that I was able to find back in the 1990s where a house was built partially across the property line. At that time, the Utilities Department determined to handle that by disposing of the property as surplus. I don't know that that's necessarily the best way to handle this situation, because I don't believe that I can say with a straight face and a pure heart that that's surplus property. It's merely being encroached upon. What that means to me when I look at that picture is that we've got litigation on our hands. The way to resolve that would be to sue the property owner and have them tear the house down. But I can tell you that very few courts are going to be interested in that sort of a resolution. They'd rather see some kind of a sale occur, whether we buy their property or they buy ours. We don't want to own a house. We don't want to own that property. So it becomes appropriate for us to look at a particular statute, the one that you cited, the one that I presented to you to cite, which would allow us to sell a piece of real estate to an abutting landowner, when that parcel of real estate really would only be satisfied, would only really be able to be sold to that abutting landowner. Nobody else in the world is going to use that house besides them. And anybody else in the world who would buy a parcel that would own that piece of property would be themselves buying litigation. So it just makes sense for us to use that statute to appraise the property, which we did, and to publicly notice the fact that we are going to sell this property with the intention of selling it to the abutting landowner. When we created the parcel that you can see at the top of that picture, it's small, but that little piece at the top that now encompasses the house, is actually landlocked. And it makes a piece of landlocked property really isn't worth very much. And the appraisal on that little piece of landlocked property with a massive encroachment on it came out to be about $5,000. With the cost of the appraisal at $800, we are asking this board to approve a sale through public notice of that parcel for $5,800 as the asking price. We go through a process where we have to first talk to the Lake Lemon Conservancy District, which I've made overtures to them. They have a right of first refusal from their lease. So they first have to, as a board, say, we don't want to buy that litigation. Thank you very much, but no, which I'm being told will be the recommendation of their liaison. So that will happen, and then we can publish notice twice, and 14 days later we'll be able to negotiate the sale with the abutting landowner. Those are the intended dance steps. I'm happy to try and answer questions about the resolution and why we're doing this.
Questions for Chris? Yes.
Thank you for the explanation. It's interesting. It strikes me that like the appraisal method just isn't sound for the question that's being asked. Like an alternative approach would be, okay, what's this parcel of land worth at a market value, maybe the existing parcel, and like a kind of a prorated square footage piece. Like, yes, the land has little value to anyone else because it's landlocked now, but like that's a product of this prior error of the house being built incorrectly, right? And so it doesn't really seem like it reflects the increase in fair market value to their home. I'm not saying it's a bad outcome per se. I'm just kind of curious about the unsuitability of an appraisal process that was gone through to value this piece of land, and if there are alternative methods that have been explored in similar cases.
There haven't been any alternative methods explored because the other cases that might be similar to this one, as far as utilities department is concerned, did not go through an appraisal process. They handled this in a different method. One was disposed as quote-unquote surplus, which rendered the property, $1 type of value. And the other one was handled through an encroachment agreement as a settlement through litigation that occurred when they built some decking out onto our property and didn't want to tear the decking down. So a litigation occurred, and the parties resolved it through an encroachment agreement that allows the deck to stand until such time as they may wish to improve it, in which case they have to, I don't remember all the terms, but they would have to remove the deck, I think, entirely if it were to be destroyed or altered in any way. So we don't have a situation where an appraisal like this has occurred. I'm aware that the appraiser had difficulty coming up with any kind of a comparable because it's hard to find a comparable that's situated out around Lake Lemon areas that looks like this and has that type of encroachment on it. I realize that the encroachment created this issue. It might help to know that the people that bought this property weren't the ones who built that home. It was built in the 70s. I don't know how the current owners bought the property without knowing this issue, but they bought the property with this issue. So I know that probably doesn't satisfy your question. There probably are better or alternative ways to appraise the property. And certainly if the board wished for us to try and find alternative methods for arriving at a fair value, I'd be all ears and be happy to try and approach those methods.
I appreciate that. Again, I'm not necessarily convinced it's a bad outcome or something. I'm just curious about it. But then related, kind of maybe an analog that I think of in the council setting sometimes is like vacating alleys, and it's something I am highly, highly averse to because you kind of don't know what the 100 or 200 year future of a chunk of land looks like. And we've vacated a lot of alleys in our history that I think we've regretted doing. And this isn't quite the same thing, but I guess
I don't see the two. I'd be on your side with regards to the alleys.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there waiting to be used, and they do still have a value to the city, right?
So I guess I'm asking, like, is an encroachment agreement possible here? Like, what if at some point in the future, maybe we don't think it's worth it or not valuable enough, but at some point in the future, if somebody were to redevelop the home, tear this down, build something new, at that point, even if it's 50 years down the line, would an encroachment agreement, be a different way to actually keep the property and direct the development back onto the original, the parcel that is privately owned?
Under an encroachment agreement, we would continue to own the property, yes. But it renders their property almost valueless. It'll be very difficult. Now, I wouldn't say it's valueless, but certainly the value goes down, because right now the reality is that they have applied for a county permit to do renovations to their home, interior, not exterior. They're not trying to expand the home in any way. But they are being denied that permit because of the fact that they are situated on the property the way it is. We could have an encroachment agreement with them that says, yes, you can have your house here, but it might still create some of the same problems with trying to do anything with their home. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer completely. But it also makes it very difficult for them to sell the property to somebody who would actually do their due diligence and see that the house is in this situation, and you just can't really do anything with it unless you get our permission first, right? So if you wanted to put a deck on the back, you could not, because you'd have to get our permission, and we wouldn't be inclined to want to see the thing continue to expand. And so it just becomes very difficult for them as homeowners or property owners to enjoy the full value of what they have, because they don't own half the house. We do. So very awkward. And so this seemed like a satisfactory resolution to give them full value of the property, and we don't have to worry about what's going on with that house anymore, I guess. Yeah.
Did I see you have a, no. Okay, Jim?
How big is the piece of land?
So it's about a point. So the main parcel, their property is like 0.2, I think, and then the purchase area is 0.12. Yeah, I think I might have said 2.3, but I was close.
Yeah.
The value of property, even in expensive parts of Bloomington, this doesn't sound out of line with that. Maybe it's a little cheaper.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There's an assessed value for the parcel that the property owners do own. There is no assessed value for the piece that we would own or that we would sell, because the government property in that lake, it just doesn't get assessed. So there is no value assessed. And so to try and come up with an appraised value of what that little piece means has proven to be difficult for the appraiser.
But I assume that the same value for that piece of land as is their assessed value for their property would be about the same. So if their property is twice as big, their property should be assessed at about $10,000. You see what I'm saying? That makes sense.
Double that is, yeah.
So is that accurate or not?
Well, I don't know.
It seemed to me that would have been the easiest way to assess the value of the property, but what do I know?
Did the appraisal include the half house or just the land?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer without going back and looking at the appraisal.
Because that's a very different.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would be a very different amount. I assume it's just the land.
Yeah, I don't know that it took into consideration the improvement of half a house on the property. I'm not sure. I don't recall that it did. The other reality, I'll say this real quick, I'm sorry, is that the Lake Lemon Conservancy District does not meet until until after our next board meeting. So if there was value in this board having us do anything and bringing this back to the board in 2 weeks, I'd be happy to do that as well. So it's whatever your pleasure is, and it can be delayed as long as it has to be for us to get this right. Quite frankly, we're the ones in control of what's happening here. Sorry, go right ahead.
So, considering this property to be landlocked, in my mind, grossly undervalues it. This is lakefront property with nothing in between. the existing property and the lake other than CBU property that no one's going to develop. So
It doesn't provide any riparian rights because it doesn't reach the shoreline, and we own the property between what we're creating and the shoreline, yeah.
The reason and the rationale for considering in that way, but when I looked at the map, and then I was like, well, where's the price? And then I got to the memo on the next page. I was really shocked at how small the amount was. Yeah. I had the same impression that other members of the board have had. And I'm not saying that it's not the right approach. I'm just saying it seems like we're undervaluing that property due to our approach. And I'm not saying there's a better approach. I'm just saying it seems like it's undervaluing it. It's just a comment.
Questions or comments? Frank, could you flip back to the other? Yes, thank you. Okay, so that helps me to view it this way. So I agree with every other comment this evening. When I think about what Jim pointed out, that this is adding, 50% to their land. When I look at properties to potentially buy just even a lot in the county, which this would be in the county, not, connecting to a lakefront that, while that's our property, they have that unobstructed, view. That's not comparable. So I think maybe the consensus would be that we would see if there's another way to do an appraisal that would make it fair for the CBU. Obviously, we want to be fair to the homeowners, but not at the expense of our ratepayers, if that's our property. I think that would be fair to their neighbors. If this neighbor on this side, I guess, would be maybe to the east. If they've got another 0.12 acres, like we wouldn't sell them 0.12 acres for $5,000. I don't think so. I don't know. I would be interested in more consideration.
Could get an alternate appraisal, more than one appraisal.
I think the question is what would the appraisal look like? And I don't know that any of it. Yes.
You mentioned that we didn't have any good historical analogs locally. Did you, by chance, consult any, utility attorney, listservs or networks or other points of access you may have in your field to ask the question of, surely people have dealt with this question before, if not us?
I did not ask anybody in my profession how they might have handled creating a parcel and selling it off that's positioned around a lake that we own. I haven't asked that question. I'm happy to reach out and see if any of my colleagues out there have tried to address this issue. Not being an expert in the sales of or purchase of real estate, I understand how the transactions occur, but coming up with the values, I myself was surprised at the $5,000 price tag, but I'm not an expert in appraising properties, and so this is what they presented, and this is what I gave to you. I'm happy to try and find an alternative method of trying to arrive at a value for this property, though I don't know what that will be yet.
Just a possible suggestion. I mean, just workshopping this, it will be a 0.36 acre lot if it's sold. What would an empty 0.36 acre lot on Lake Lemon sell for? That's kind of the question we're trying to answer. And then you take that number, and a third of it would be a fair price. So if it was a vacant lot that somebody was going to build a house on, because we're just looking for value of land, essentially, as a contiguous property, not some landlocked piece that we're trying to sell, I think. And that seems like a fairer way to arrive at a price.
They do have an assessed value for the 0.24 acres already.
Independently of the
The
improvements
structure,
of the
yes.
house?
The county always gives you the land and then the structure.
Okay.
So that's there already.
Trapezoidal figure assessed value was around $200,000.
For what? For the
Without the house?
For the house.
For that, yeah, for the property there with the house, not taking into consideration the fact that it sits on somebody else's property, that piece of property by the county's assessments is around $200,000.
And does it break it down by the land and the structure?
I don't recall. I just
All
knew
our
the total.
all our properties are assessed with land and structure. So, you know, I don't know. My inclination is that if you're going to go to all the trouble, what are you going to find that an alternative gives you 10,000, 15,000? I mean, the ratepayers aren't. It has no effect on the ratepayers.
Maybe there's some project that we would do, or there's conservancy I don't know what it would be, but to me, I think like if I'm going to go out and want to buy that house when they sell it at a 0.36, then I'm going to pay a lot more for it than if I bought it and it was all in the 0.24. And I'm not a realtor or appraiser or anything, but I'm just somebody who looks at properties, as a potential owner. And I think that it is. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was, even though it's not lakefront, that it's unobstructed by us. That's clear there. That I wouldn't have been surprised if the land was $200,000. Quite honestly, I don't know, and that's probably way off. But it wouldn't have surprised me if that 0.24 was a $200,000 land appraisal when there's lots in the county not on the lake that go for $150,000. I don't know. I think it's. I think we would like more information and see if there's another way to come up with the same number, and then we've done our due diligence and feel like that's okay. It's $5,400, but maybe it's $50,000.
Sure.
50. I think it's. I agree if we're nickel and diming it, and it's like 5 and we got 8. But hey, if we got 50 out of it, then that's worth it because it's worth it to them. They're going to get $50,000. I think you mentioned that at the start. They're going to get more out of it when they sell it.
It does affect the ratepayers, and this is property, my understanding, owned by this utility. Is that correct?
It's owned by the city of Bloomington, but we are charged with. It was built for a water source for the city, and historically, the utilities department has been the one charged with handling and maintaining and leasing it with LLCD, right? The lease is between the utilities department through the USB and the LLCD.
Where's the $5,800 go if we sell it?
Well, I don't know. I guess I should ask the controller that, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I'd like to think that it stays with the utility, but I guess I don't know that answer.
With that assumption, in some way it does affect our ratepayers.
Yeah.
Maybe in a minuscule amount, but what if some point we decide, you know what, Lake Lemon is really not a viable backup water supply. Let's say, I'm not saying that's true or not, but some point we may do that. We want to get rid of all this property and sell it, and that'll we can use it for other projects that are really essential. So in that way, it would affect the ratepayers, and maybe it's all water, maybe it's something more than water, but it does have an impact. We can't just dismiss that.
Well, I guess I want to know so if Chris pursues, how are we going to know what is the actual good rate? We have one method that came up with 5,800. If the next one comes up with 20,000, how do we decide which is right? Then we get a third one? You're giving him an impossible task.
If an appraisal comes back at 20,000, I would be proposing through the public notice that we're selling it for 20,000, not for anything less. That would be my recommendation.
We have to support the method.
Yeah.
And I hear that maybe we're not supporting the method right now. That's what I hear.
I hear two things that I will want to do and present back to this board. First is to see about having take another crack at getting the value of the property, but also to find out, what would be the controller's intentions when we do ultimately, if we were to ultimately sell this property, what would happen with those funds? Because it didn't occur to me to ask that question, and I'm glad that it came up. So I will find that out and get that answer so that we know what the city's intentions are with regards to this sale.
And this item will be on next meeting's agenda, I assume.
In some fashion, we'll have another discussion about this. I would be hard-pressed to ask this board to sell this piece of property if the value isn't going to stay with the utility. I would just suggest to the board that we do an encroachment agreement and forget about it. That would just be the easier way to resolve it.
So the house itself sold for $800,000.
Did it?
It's on the sales disclosure.
The current owners have any leverage? They bought a property under kind of false circumstance against the people from whom they bought the property.
False circumstances. I wasn't there when they negotiated.
But I'm asking if they.
So the land separate from the improvements of the original property is almost $300,000. The improvements are about $530,000.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
So if the land.
So I don't know.
$100,000. And
That does seem very odd.
And that's, and potentially, then ours would be 150. If it's another third of that. You're taking.
You could just do a math
$150,000,
equation.
Chris.
I got to get there somehow.
It's on the GIS.
Oh, okay.
I can send the website to Megan. You can get it out to everyone if we want.
Frank would be the best one.
Oh, Frank, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate all of your time on this before and then tonight, and then I know we're tasking you with more time on this. But it is important to us, clearly, or everybody wouldn't have had a comment to say about it. And so we want to be fair to the homeowner, but also to the utility. So thank you. So then I guess we need a motion to table this discussion.
That's what I would recommend, yes.
I move to table the discussion till the next meeting.
And then all in favor of tabling the request to approve Resolution 2024-13 to sell a tract of land pursuant to Indiana Code 36-1-11-5. Please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries to table to the next meeting.
Great.
Thank
you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time and input on that issue. All right. Next order of business is the request for approval of agreement for services with Brightview Landscapes, LLC. Matt Havey.
Yeah, we finally got our contract settled for our lawn mowing services for the summer. This will cover the service center, all three plants, the lift stations, and the booster stations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, old business. Do we have any old business from the board? Old business from staff?
No.
New business from the board? New business from staff?
No.
There were no subcommittees this week, so staff reports.
I didn't receive anything. Does anybody have anything? So, no staff report.
Okay. Are there any petitions and communications from the public? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Holly McLaughlin, Communications Manager. We had some trouble with our Zoom audio tonight, so I'm just going to read a comment from the Zoom chat. So Brian from Green Dragon Mowing says he has some questions about the bidder who won the project for the mowing. Basically, the bid was exactly the same as his company, but the new contract added 10 lift stations and the service center, landscape, and snow removal. If someone looked up last year's numbers and bid accordingly, then they are comparing apples to oranges. So.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Thank you. All right. And hearing no other petitions or communication, do we have a motion to adjourn? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.